Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. So I wanted to go over what it's been like for the past 6 months owning goats for the first time. One of the very first things I noticed when I was researching goats versus sheep versus cows was how many conflicting opinions there were on YouTube about goats, because there were the people that seemed to never ever have a problem with their goats and it was always smooth sailing, and then there were a lot of people who had a lot of problems from the start and was constantly challenged by new problems with their goats. There was even a video that Homestead did, which I love Homestead. But there was a video that they did where they asked people in the comments to rank livestock based off of difficulty or ease of care, and they ranked goats the hardest. So, and this was all before my goats came home. So we had decided that goats were the right choice for us, and we had put all this money in fencing for the goats. And I watched this video. I was like, are these goats gonna even survive? Like, am I gonna be able to care for them? Oh my gosh, I was so scared. For us, Nigerian dwarfs are the perfect choice because of their size. Specifically, we have 2 young children, and we also don't have any trailers for livestock. So the fact that you can put them in a kennel, like a dog kennel, and put them in, we would put them in the cab of our truck and have them be secure and safe, was a huge plus for us. Now, I do have some experience as a veterinary technician. I was a veterinary technician for better part of a decade, and I worked in an emergency, I worked in exotics. I've done a couple of things over the course of my veterinary technician career. But that being said, with ruminants, all kinds of information that I knew kind of goes out the window, because you're dealing with a completely different digestive system than what I'm used to. So even though I had experience in the veterinary world, I kind of was going in completely blind with goats. Even though, like, when I was younger, I was around horses a lot, I never owned horses. I had no experience caring every single day for horses. So with that in mind, I'm gonna get to my very first piece of advice, which you have probably heard before if you're looking into getting goats. And that is, get good stock if you can. So I was scouring Craigslist for months, and this is before I talked to someone with experience with goats, breeding goats specifically. And honestly, if I hadn't met her and talked to her, then I 100% would have just bought the first goat that I found on Craigslist that mentioned something about dairy, and would have just gone with that. But I spoke with, she's my friend now. I spoke with her and we got to talking, and she explained to me the importance of getting good quality, well-bred animals, because breeders should be, if they're good breeders, they should be breeding animals that are healthy and are good examples of the breed. So Huckleberry is a Nigerian dwarf, which is a ADGA registered goat. Now he's a wether, so he specifically isn't ADGA registered, but Lemon, where is she? Lemon and Huckleberry are. I don't know, or Lemon and Juniper, sorry. Lemon and Juniper are registered with the ADGA. I don't know where Juniper is, but she's in there somewhere. But it's really one of the reasons why it's important to invest in good stock is because they will have less health problems down the line, or at least they won't come with health problems, which is a big concern with goats. Another reason why it's important to get good stock from a good breeder is because, and this is a huge plus, because you can ask the breeder. Like, most good breeders that I personally know, they do not mind if I ask them a question, because I have lots of questions. I'm a newbie. Like, especially when Huckleberry was sick. Huckleberry, I knew he was having a problem, but I wasn't experienced to know what it was. Now, I knew that it's very, very common for them to have problems with intestinal parasites, and I knew specifically coccidia was one of them. So a few of you who have watched a lot of my short videos may know that Huckleberry was on meds for a while. So I asked his breeder, because he was starting to have loose, clumpy stools. And in the beginning, they were just clumpy, but I knew they weren't supposed to be clumpy. I knew they were supposed to be little pellets. And he was clumpy. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, he's got some clumpy stools. It was back in the spring, so I didn't know if it was like the new grass coming up or something. And I talked to her and I ended up sending out the first fecal sample. And as the days went on, his stools were getting worse and worse, and he was starting to scare me. So I was still waiting for the fecal results to come back, but I called a large animal vet that I know does goats. At first, they suggested Corid, the veterinarian. By the way, it's important to research if there's one in your area that does goats specifically. So I got the results of the fecal after I treated with Corid, and Huckleberry came back with significant coccidia. So I knew at that point it was coccidia, because they did a fecal flotation test, which tests for all different kinds of intestinal parasites, and coccidia was the only thing he came back with, which coccidia is actually a protozoa, I believe, not a worm. But anyway, so I called the veterinarian back and I said exactly what I knew, which I told him I treated with Corid and he's still got problems. I need you to come back because he's like going downhill fast. And he came out and treated for, he wanted to do he wanted to deworm them completely for intestinal parasites, and he gave him, what else did he give him? Ivermectin, I think. So he gave him ivermectin, and so Huckleberry did not respond to that. So, extremely long story short, we had a lot of trouble treating Huckleberry for coccidia a couple months ago, and he legit almost died. It wasn't until, and this is with a veterinarian treating him. It was awful. I literally texted his breeder one morning crying because I had just come inside from doing chores and there was literally diarrhea all over the walls of their house, and Clementine, this was before Juniper came home, so Lemon-Tine was covered in it too. And I really thought he was going to die, but I talked to her after the veterinarian's treatment didn't work, and I was like, Huckleberry's like trying to die on me, and I need help, and what do I treat him with? Like, how can I save him? And she ended up, she told me that she's had a lot of luck with Albon. So literally I called the veterinarian. I was like, can I just buy some Albon from you? And I did. I bought like the big bottle because I was just like so worried about him. And like almost, I think it took a couple of days for his stool to thicken up completely, but finally it worked. So I'd say in the first 6 months of goat ownership, Huckleberry's coccidia problem was definitely the biggest scare that we've had. And I don't suggest even trying anything with Corid. I know that people treat with Corid successfully all the time, but personally, we did not have much luck with it. So for that reason, for those reasons, it's very important to get good stock, because the breeders can help you get your way through problems that arise on top of having animals that are bred for health and stamina. So another big thing that I'd say is super important and has been super useful for us is the fact that you are going to be the biggest advocate for your animals. So for me, I watch, like now after the whole coccidia fiasco, I like keep such a close eye on them, on their eating habits, on if they're drinking water, but in general, like I'm paying attention to how much they're eating, drinking. I am literally looking at their rear ends, making sure, like, is there anything sticking out, like a worm? How are their poops looking? I literally walk around the enclosure and make sure everyone's poops are just like little pellets. It sounds crazy, but that way, if somebody has one clumpy poop, like if you're walking around there, and I mean, you're out there anyway taking care of them, so it's like, it's not that big of a deal for me, but you notice right away. And knowing where you can send poop. So that was a huge thing that I ended up doing it like 3 times before we finally conquered coccidia. But I sent fecals out to Meadow Mist Lab, and they have, she was so kind. I love her, and she has all the information on her website. So that was really helpful. Also doing the FAMACHA score, that's a good way to tell where your goats are at as far as health. So learning how to do a FAMACHA score and printing out the scale off of a printer. So as far as grain and minerals and stuff, your biggest information, most useful information is going to be from your breeders. So, hi. Sorry. So your breeders are going to be your biggest source of information as far as food. So because I have a wether and 2 does, I have grain that has ammonium chloride in it. It's called Herd 18 by Home Fresh. It's the teal bag. And so far we've had good luck with that, because when you have a wether, you want the ammonium chloride, because wethers can develop urinary calculi and they can have urinary problems if they don't have the ammonium chloride in their food. So I wouldn't have known that if it weren't for my friend, the breeder, telling me that. Like, she's got my goat's best interest in her mind too, you know what I mean? So also minerals. You want to get some good minerals. So I've looked around at different kinds, and Hoger Supply, I hear really good things about their minerals. And I hear good things about the Pride, what is it called? I'll insert it here. I forget the specific name of it, but I hear good things about those minerals too. And then there's a big divide, it seems, with the sodium bicarbonate baking soda. Some people say have it available to them at all times. Some people say don't. I do. And I don't know. It's really all about your research that you do, and obviously you have the best intentions for your goats, so just do what feels right for you and your herd, honestly. So with all that being said, I wanted to go over some of the items that I've accumulated over the past 6 months, and kind of go over why or how often I use them. All right, I'm gonna try to talk loud because the goats are right next to me. But I'd say probably the most useful so far has been the Albon. But obviously, if your goats don't have coccidia, then you do not need it. Second would be these probiotic plus paste. I did get this Hoger's Original Herbal Warmer. I don't give this as treatment. I give this as like a kind of supplement to hopefully help them deter the worms. And then I also bought this toner. And again, I'm not treating anything with this. I'm just kind of giving it as a supplement, and it's to help with immune system. This is just a little bottle of lube that I use, getting fecals from them. A 5 ml syringe. This has been used a lot, especially for Albon. These are very, very useful to have in the kit because I specifically use them for the herbal supplements. Of course, a good pair of nail or hoof trimmers. A thermometer is useful to have. Gloves. Gloves are something that I don't have in this box, but I use when I'm especially doing fecal samples, obviously. And I have a couple of other supplements here. I haven't had to use these yet, but I read that these were good to have on hand, so I do. Especially when you have does that you're going to breed. And then I bought the biggest thing of blood stop powder that you can possibly get. I haven't had to use that yet either, thankfully. So that's it for today's video, guys. I really do love these guys so much. And I take their health really seriously because their milk is going to be a source of food for our family someday. So I think it's good to really care. And she wanted the spotlight. So in summation, even though there have been challenges, and at one point I even thought one of them was gonna die when I was terrified and upset, I would do it all over again. I love them. I love them so much. The kids love them. They're easy to handle, especially the Nigerian dwarfs, because they're so tiny and they're so sweet. Like, so they're like nicer than our dogs. Not even kidding. And I just love them. So I like them. And even with the challenges, as long as you're paying attention and noticing little changes, then you should be good. And I also forgot to mention that keeping a log is super helpful. So if you notice something, write the date and say blank goat had blank, like loose stool today or whatever. And so that way, a couple days later, if the problem escalates, you can talk on the phone to whoever you're talking to and go, oh yeah, it started the other day. Like, I know the exact date. And also for Huckleberry, at one point I had to treat him with Albon for like 10 days. And like with everything else going on in life, believe me, take it easy on yourself and just log it. Just put it down. It takes 2 seconds. You will thank yourself later, I promise. But anyway, that is it for today's video. I hope this was helpful. If you like goats too, leave a little comment. That would help me out a lot. But thank you so much. Have a good day.